The elegant foyer of the Blackwood mansion echoed with the sound of expensive heels clicking rapidly across marble floors as yet another nanny gathered her belongings and headed for the front door. 36-year-old tech mogul Nathan Blackwood stood in his home office doorway, watching through the large windows as the latest in a long line of highly qualified childcare professionals practically ran to her car without looking back. In the past 6 months, Nathan had hired 14 different nannies to care for his 5-year-old triplet sons, Ethan, Lucas, and Mason, and his 18-month-old daughter Lily. Each candidate had arrived with impeccable credentials, glowing references, and confident assurances that they could handle any childcare challenge. Each had left within days, sometimes hours, looking shell-shocked and muttering about never having encountered children quite like the Blackwood boys. Nathan ran his hand through his dark hair and loosened his navy suit jacket, feeling the familiar weight of frustration and helplessness that had become his constant companion since his wife died 2 years earlier. The triplets had always been energetic and mischievous, but since losing their mother, their behavior had escalated to levels that seemed to defeat even the most experienced professionals. The boys were not malicious, Nathan knew. They were intelligent, creative, and fundamentally good-hearted children who were processing grief and confusion in the only ways they knew how. But their synchronized campaigns of chaos, elaborate pranks, strategic messmaking, and an uncanny ability to find the exact buttons to push with each new caregiver, had earned them a reputation that was making it increasingly difficult to find anyone willing to work for the Blackwood family. Nathan was considering whether he might need to take an extended leave from his company when the doorbell rang. Through the side window, he could see a young woman standing on his front porch, holding the hand of a small child and carrying what appeared to be a well-worn diaper bag over her shoulder. When Nathan opened the door, he found himself looking at a woman who appeared to be in her mid-20s, with long blonde hair and wearing a simple white dress that was clean and neat but clearly not expensive. Beside her stood a little girl who looked to be about the same age as Lily, with curly hair and bright, curious eyes. "Mr. Blackwood," the woman said, her voice carrying a slight nervousness but also a determined confidence. "My name is Sarah Mitchell. I saw your posting for a nanny position, and I was hoping to speak with you about the job." Nathan glanced at the child beside her, then back at Sarah. "I appreciate you coming by, Miss Mitchell, but I should mention that the position involves caring for 4 children, including 5-year-old triplets who can be quite challenging. And I notice you have a child with you." Sarah smiled, and Nathan noticed that her expression held both warmth and a hint of amused understanding. "This is my daughter Emma. She is 2 years old, and she comes with me wherever I work. I know that might seem like a complication, but I have found that having another child around often helps rather than hinders when working with difficult cases." Nathan was intrigued despite himself. Every other nanny he had interviewed had emphasized their ability to focus completely on his children without any outside distractions. "What makes you think having your daughter here would be helpful?" "Children often act out when they feel like they are being managed or controlled by adults," Sarah explained. "But when there is another child present, especially a younger one, their protective instincts often kick in. They start thinking about setting good examples and being helpful rather than just testing boundaries." Before Nathan could respond, the sound of running feet echoed from inside the house, followed by what sounded like something large falling over and breaking. The unmistakable voices of Ethan, Lucas, and Mason could be heard in animated discussion about whether what they had just done constituted an accident or an experiment. Nathan closed his eyes briefly, then looked back at Sarah with an expression that was equal parts apology and warning. "That would be the triplets. Are you sure you want to proceed with this conversation?" Sarah's smile widened. "Mr. Blackwood, I am a single mother who has been working in childcare for 7 years while raising my own daughter. Trust me when I say that very little surprises me anymore." Nathan invited Sarah and Emma into the house, and they had barely made it to the living room when the triplets appeared, apparently having been drawn by the sound of new voices. The 3 boys lined up in front of Sarah like a small army preparing for inspection, their identical faces wearing expressions of polite curiosity that Nathan knew from experience meant they were already planning their first test of the new potential nanny. "Boys, this is Miss Sarah," Nathan said. "She is here to talk about possibly helping take care of you and Lily." Ethan, who typically served as the unofficial spokesman for the group, stepped forward. "Are you going to quit like all the other nannies?" "I have not decided if I want the job yet," Sarah replied matter-of-factly. "That depends on whether you boys think you would like to have me and Emma around." This response clearly surprised the triplets, who were accustomed to adults either trying to impress them or immediately establishing authority. The idea that the potential nanny might be evaluating them rather than the other way around was apparently a novel concept. Lucas, the middle triplet, pointed at Emma. "Is that your little girl?" "Yes, this is Emma. She is 2 years old, and she is very good at sharing toys and playing nicely with other children." Mason, the youngest by 3 minutes and typically the most skeptical of new people, studied Emma with the serious expression he usually reserved for particularly complex Lego constructions. "Does she cry a lot?" "Sometimes," Sarah admitted. "All children cry when they are sad or frustrated or tired. But Emma is pretty good at using her words to tell me what she needs." Nathan watched this interaction with fascination. The triplets were engaging with Sarah in a way they had never done with previous nanny candidates. Instead of immediately beginning their usual campaign of testing and boundary pushing, they seemed genuinely curious about her and Emma. "Miss Sarah," Ethan said, "do you know how to play Lego Batman?" "I'm not sure," Sarah replied seriously. "How do you play Lego Batman?" The question launched the triplets into an enthusiastic and highly detailed explanation of their favorite game, which seemed to involve complex rules, multiple storylines, and a level of creativity that Nathan had to admit was impressive even when it resulted in chaos. Sarah listened to their explanation with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions and making suggestions that showed she was actually paying attention to their elaborate game design. Emma, meanwhile, had wandered over to investigate a basket of toys and was quietly playing with blocks in a way that somehow made the whole scene feel more peaceful. "That sounds like a very complicated and interesting game," Sarah said when the boys had finished their explanation. "I think I would need some practice before I could play it correctly. Would you be willing to teach me?" Nathan realized he was witnessing something unprecedented. The triplets were not trying to shock, test, or dismiss Sarah. Instead, they were genuinely engaging with her as if she were a potential playmate rather than another adult authority figure to be resisted. When 18-month-old Lily toddled into the room, still carrying her afternoon nap hair and clutching her favorite stuffed fox, she stopped short at the sight of Emma. The two little girls regarded each other with the serious consideration that toddlers use when deciding whether someone might become a friend. Emma approached Lily slowly and offered her one of the blocks she had been playing with. "Pretty baby," Emma said in her clear toddler voice. "Want to play?" Lily accepted the block and immediately offered Emma her stuffed fox in return, the kind of generous gesture that indicated instant approval. "Mr. Blackwood," Sarah said, "could I speak with you privately for a moment?" Nathan led Sarah to the kitchen while the children continued their introductions in the living room. Through the doorway, he could see the triplets showing Emma their extensive collection of toys while she shared her blocks with Lily. "I want to be completely honest with you about my situation," Sarah said. "I am a single mother, and childcare work is how I support Emma and myself. I do not have a college degree or fancy credentials like the other nannies you have probably interviewed. What I do have is 7 years of experience working with children of all ages, including several families with special behavioral challenges." Nathan appreciated her directness. "What makes you think you would be successful where others have failed?" "Because I do not think your boys are problems to be solved," Sarah replied. "I think they are intelligent children who are dealing with loss and change in the only ways they know how. They need someone who will engage with their creativity and energy rather than trying to suppress it." "And your daughter? How would having her here affect the dynamic?" Sarah glanced back toward the living room, where Emma could be heard giggling at something one of the boys had said. "Children learn more from other children than they do from adults. Your boys have been in charge of their own little world for so long that they have forgotten what it feels like to be protective and nurturing. Having Emma and Lily here will remind them that they can be leaders and helpers instead of just rule breakers." Nathan found himself nodding as Sarah spoke. Her approach was completely different from anything the previous nannies had suggested, but it made intuitive sense in a way that gave him hope for the first time in months. "Miss Sarah," Nathan said, "I would like to offer you a trial period. 1 week, full pay, and at the end of that time, we can both decide if this arrangement is working for everyone." Sarah smiled and extended her hand. "I accept, Mr. Blackwood. But I have one condition. If this is going to work, you need to trust me to handle behavioral issues my way, even if my methods seem unconventional." What do you mean? I mean that when the boys test boundaries or act out, I'm not going to use traditional punishment or discipline. I'm going to redirect their energy into positive activities and help them understand how their choices affect other people, especially Emma and Lily. Nathan agreed, and Sarah started the next morning. Within hours, Nathan began to see changes that seemed almost miraculous. The triplets were still energetic and mischievous, but their pranks became collaborative games that included Emma. Their mess-making became science experiments that Sarah helped them conduct in controlled ways. Their testing of boundaries became negotiations about household rules that took everyone's needs into account. Most importantly, the boys began to demonstrate the protective, nurturing instincts that Sarah had predicted. They helped Emma reach toys she wanted, they made sure Lily did not put small objects in her mouth, and they took pride in being big brothers to both little girls. 6 months later, Nathan realized that Sarah had not just solved his childcare crisis, she had helped heal his family. The house was filled with laughter again, the children were thriving, and Nathan had been able to return his focus to his business knowing that his children were not just being supervised, but truly cared for. When Nathan asked Sarah to marry him on a snowy December evening, the triplets cheered and immediately began planning how they would teach Emma and Lily to be the best flower girls ever. Sarah said yes, not just because she had fallen in love with Nathan, but because she had fallen in love with the beautiful, chaotic, loving family they had all created together. Sometimes the most challenging children are not problems to be solved, but gifts waiting to be understood. Sarah had seen past the triplets' difficult behavior to recognize their intelligence, creativity, and deep need for connection. In return, they had shown her that the most important job in the world is not just caring for children, but helping them discover the best versions of themselves.